So really nice to be here in Southern California and to be in this amazing spot. And that makes me want to get a Jumbotron at Tenney Stadium. That is the biggest Marist I've ever seen. Really cool. All right, so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Zach. Zach, we put together a bio for you. Otherwise, I would have to riff and do a bit of a roast, which I could do, but I don't think that would be the right way to start this. So it is my pleasure to introduce Zach Arth, an assistant professor of sports communication and the assistant director of the Center for Sports Communication at Marist. He received his master's in communication from the State University of New York at Buffalo and his PhD in communication and information science from the University of Alabama in 2019. His research centers around sports media, particularly focusing on issues pertaining to ethnicity, nationality, and sex and gender. So with that, Zach, I'll throw it over to you.
It's always a pleasure to take the microphone from Kevin Weinman. I joked with him saying that when they asked me to come out here, I said, "Is Kevin Weinman going to be there?" And they said yes, and I said, "Then I will be too." I was hoping I was going to get put on the Kevin Weinman plane, but no such luck. So next time we'll arrange that better. Thanks everyone for coming. This is, I think some other people I've heard today have said this is their first time in Los Angeles, and it's my first time too. It's been an interesting experience so far. You know, taking a direct flight last night and then arriving groggy at like 11 p.m. and then walking around the beach all day today. So I don't know, it feels pretty good to me. But I have the pleasure of introducing and sort of, you know, moderating our discussion today. We have a handful of questions. We have some great people up here. And I'll give you some information on all of them individually, and then I'll have them introduce themselves, and then we'll sort of take it from there. As Pat Taylor would know, he's here. He's been in my classes before. We're going to keep it pretty casual and conversational today because I don't really know any other way to do it. So hope you're excited. First, I'm not going to go in order because I have them listed here, and I'm not going to try to go out of order. So Becci Casas is first. She graduated in 2019 with a degree in communication. She is now a senior marketing manager in brand partnerships at iHeart Media. If you want to applaud after each one, we can do that, and then we'll take it from there. Thank you. Andrew Fegyveresi?
That's correct.
Okay. I was worried about that one, I'm sorry. From the class of 2000 is the Senior VP of Communications at Fox Sports. He received his BA in Public Relations. Michael Larkin is next. He earned his degree in Communication in 1987. He is a producer, writer, and executive of his own company, Michael G. Larkin Productions. Graduating in 2005 with a BA in journalism, AJ Nseir holds 2 jobs. He works at Sony Pictures Entertainment as the director of digital distribution, and he is also a screenwriter. Jeff Nicosia graduated in 1988 with a degree in communication and is now the owner and executive producer at Industrious Films, LLC. And last but certainly not least, from the class of 1980, Dave Shaw is the VP and head of media operations at NFL Media. At Marist, he earned a degree in news and journalism, and he also played basketball. A special thank you to Dave for hosting our event here at NFL's new West Coast headquarters. I assume all of you got the tour as well, and it is an amazing sight to see. The NFL Red Zone room was pretty cool, though. It feels like a magical place. All right, so we kind of have 3 different categories of questions, sort of like career-focused questions, industry-focused questions, and then advice for attendees. Before we get into all those, though, I would ask that each of you individually, would you please introduce yourselves and share an overview of your career since you graduated from Marist? And I'll start with Andrew. You're right next to me.
Perfect. Thanks. It's great to be here tonight. This is a unique perspective for me. I'm usually the one behind the scenes setting this up, so a good learning experience for me. But as you guys heard, I graduated in 2000. Started my career in New York City. I'm from New York, and I moved out to Los Angeles only about 6 years ago. My first job was in public relations at Rubenstein Associates in New York. They specialized in entertainment and sports clients. Fortunately for me, I got to work on the New York Yankees account, and not too long after that, they were launching a TV network called the Yes Network. It was a tremendous opportunity to sort of learn the TV business, manage the day-to-day comms. I worked there for several years before the NBA approached me about managing their television and marketing partnerships from a comms perspective. Always wanted to work at a league. We're at the NFL Network's headquarters. It was a tremendous experience. And then again, the New York Mets came along. They were launching a network called SNY. The opportunity to launch another network in New York was too good to turn down. Worked there for 9 years. I was the 5th employee there. We would sit around a table, plan out programming. Really, really fun experience. Before Time Warner Cable approached me about coming out to Los Angeles, and they were launching the Lakers and the Dodgers networks out here. Again, another tremendous opportunity. Charter came along. They acquired Time Warner Cable, and right around that time, Fox Sports was looking to add somebody to their communication staff. I came over. I had all comms for the network right now, and I will say the weather is much better here than it is in Poughkeepsie. I do miss Poughkeepsie. I will get back there, but I'm happy with the move out here.
Andrew is right about the weather. It is a lot nicer.
You lose track of time, though. There was no change in season.
I want to make a Yes Network joke if I can.
Please.
Because it's always felt to me, I don't know if there's any Yankee fans in the crowd, but I've always affectionately known it as the Yankee Propaganda Network. I don't know if you can confirm that, but...
a lot of people in the media would refer to it. I was actually combating that.
That's fine. That's fine. All right. Thank you. Becky?
Hi. My name's Becci. I graduated in 2019. Born and raised in San Diego. First generation Mexican American, daughter of immigrants. So going to Marist was a dream. Being here is a dream with all of you. So thank you so much for having me. My career path has not been traditional or linear by any means, but I started out working in talent wrangling and escorting behind the scenes at iHeart events. So if you've ever heard of Jingle Ball and iHeart Music Festival and Wango Tango, I was on the carpets, running around like a headless chicken, just meeting anybody and everybody that I could. And that led me to meeting this amazing woman who was the vice president of talent relations and publicity at iHeart. And I just stayed connected with her all throughout my time at Marist and had internships at Sony Music, at one of their music distributors called The Orchard. And I just really fell in love with ideation and realized I had a really great gift working with people and working with brands and being creative. And so post-graduation, I became a full-time sales assistant. And that being said, I graduated with a PR degree and I had no idea what sales was and meant in entertainment world. But long story short, it ended up being the best thing that could have happened to me. I really got to see how iHeartMedia worked from the inside out and work with so many different teams, from event partnerships to artist relations to our digital teams. And during the pandemic, I actually was recruited by that vice president of talent relations and publicity at iHeart that I was helping here and there throughout college to be a producer. And again, I had no idea what producing meant, but I said, I'll learn it and I'll figure it out. And she believed in me, and that's kind of been the story of my career, is one person believing in me. And so I became a producer for On Air with Ryan Seacrest and iHeart Podcasts, our reality TV slate. So 90210 MG with Tori Spelling and Jenny Garth, to Paris Hilton, you name it. And so I really enjoyed, again, learning that side of the business. And then I was recruited back to the sales team to build out the entertainment sales vertical with the senior vice president. And so I was working on entertainment partnerships, so working with all of the major film, streaming, TV, network studios, Sony Pictures, I work on daily, and so that after doing that for a year on the sales side, I was recruited and promoted to be a senior marketing manager, which is what I'm doing now on our brand partnerships team. So I lead ideation and ideating campaigns for all of our entertainment partnerships with all those studios that I just said. And so my job really is watching trailers, getting requests for proposals, and coming up with really fun and cool ideas and how we can promote those films and shows and series all over across our iHeart platforms. So that's what I'm doing now, and I also work part-time at the Kia Forum right here, working in talent and VIP services. So I help manage the ticketing for all of the artists and tour camps and any celebrity guests that we're having in there. So I get to touch and see a lot of different parts of the industry, and it's been a lot of fun.
Excellent. Thank you.
Cool. So I've been out here since 2005. I still refuse to accept that my blood is not thinned from being on the East Coast. And so you mentioned I did not get the memo that we're going to be in the shade, and I just hate to admit that I'm kind of cold right now. But so I came out right after graduation. I kind of did a pivot. As he said, I was studying journalism at Marist, and then for any of you who know Professor Zerhelen at Marist, had a creative writing course with him my senior year, fell back in love with creative writing, and he encouraged me to come to pursue getting an MFA in screenwriting. And so I ended up at USC, and so that's how I came out to LA. It was a 2-year program, did some internships, got into development, and was kind of doing that and getting to know the business as I was pursuing the writing. And then that was around the time the last writer's strike happened, and so development jobs kind of dried up. And I also realized, if I want to do this thing as a writer, I also need to get a steady job, because this is no guarantee. And so I was doing a bunch of different stuff. I was doing some PA on infomercials and just kind of getting whatever job I could get, reception desk. I was doing some cater waitering, served Tom Hanks a tray passed app at a movie premiere, which was a highlight for me. And then I ended up at a post-production facility in Burbank on a reception desk. It was supposed to be a 6-week thing. And one of my duties, aside from just checking people in and answering phones and things like that, was sending out company-wide emails when someone returned a lost set of keys to the front desk. And I was very bored. And I was let me see if I can make this a little bit fun. So I started writing little short stories about the things that people would return to the lost and found desk. And then before I knew it, someone came up and was like, "Hey, do you want a job back here?" And I didn't really even know what they did, but I just said yes. And kind of to your point, I feel like myself and a lot of people in the industry, your career is very much not linear. And I just kept, saying yes to things, and learned all about the post-production world. And then I did that for a year, and my boss, who I was really tight with, she got poached to go to Sony. I was already living in Culver City and wasn't enjoying the commute to Burbank. So I kind of begged her to take me with her, which she did. And I've been at Sony ever since. So digital content distribution is I'm like the Chandler of my friends and family. Nobody can really explain what I do or knows what I do, except for my wife, who's kind of had to learn about it. But basically, if you watch any Sony content on a streaming service, I work for the department that put it there. So we kind of sit in the middle of sales, marketing, post-production, editing, creating subtitles or things like that for global distribution. So it's an interesting space to sit kind of within all those groups. There's a lot of technology. We kind of use a lot of cutting edge technology to make things more streamlined. And obviously digital right now is huge and continues to be in streaming. And so get to kind of sit right in the middle of all that.
Thank you. Jeff?
Hi, I'm Jeff Nicosia, and I live about 10 minutes away, and I can almost see my house. No, I can't. I own a small production company. We specialize in corporate video, case studies, testimonials, that kind of stuff. We were talking, Dina and I were talking earlier, that I think a lot of people, when you hear producer, you have this image in your mind, and I think almost everybody here has been a producer or is a producer, and we all do very, very different things. So I think that's super interesting. Prior to starting my production company, I did, 25 years in the advertising world as a copywriter and creative director. My first job was procured by one Albert Stridsberg, professor of advertising. He made a phone call, and I went down to New York City and got my first job. So I feel a real connection. But I think that just events like this, I'm just super excited that people are coming out here. And quite honestly, I don't really want to talk about myself, especially compared to the people here who are a lot more, some of them, a lot more accomplished than I. So I'm going to hand it over to my friend Mike Larkin here.
Jeff, I'd like to ask you some questions if I could. Why did you choose that blazer? No.
Why did you choose that jacket?
Hey, everybody. My name is Michael Larkin. I am a 1987 graduate, Marist College. Quick one, too. I left Marist after an internship the year before at WMYW New York and started working for WMYW News, which is Fox News back then. And there was a show called A Current Affair. I jumped on that show as a PA and quickly started to find stories for this particular show as their story editor. One of those stories worth telling you was a story about a guy named Charles Starkweather and Karen Ann Fugate, who were not the nicest people, but it actually murdered 11 people over the course of 2 weeks. I bring this up because I saved a number of different stories because my sights were set on the future in terms of telling stories in a different format. I left after a couple of years, headed out to LA, worked for a show called Unsolved Mysteries. But one day I went into ABC because I had a distant cousin there, and we ended up hanging out, and I in front of me had a briefcase, and I had my blazer on. I think he thought he was going to give me a tour. I proceeded to pitch him a project about this amazing story I did just a year earlier. He didn't know what was going on. I finished after 20 minutes, and he basically said, "Stay here." He went and got the head of movies and miniseries, brought him back in the room. I repitched it, and they bought it in the room, and that began my career in scripted movies as a producer. And so that was a movie called Murder in the Heartland, which was made in 1993. Won a couple Emmys for that, and I went on to becoming an independent producer for many years. Until 1998, I became the head of movies and minis for VH1. Made a bunch of movies, biopics about rock and roll and pop stars for many years, and then went back to becoming an independent producer. Did that for many years and continue to this day to be an independent producer, writer, and executive, probably overseen or written or produced about 46 films. There you go.
Well, thanks, everybody. Will be my mic that doesn't work because I'm the host? Jason, are we good? Good. All right, good. I think they just do that for me, just to put me on the hot seat. Dave Shaw. Yeah, I'm going to This isn't working.
You really called that one.
I did. I actually said that this afternoon that was going to happen. I like the reference, Zach, to the basketball, because basketball, like, my number was retired at Marist. You might see it on the rafters. It wasn't me. It was the guy after me who scored 2,000 points. I had more fouls than I did points on my average. But anyway, we graduated Marist internship program. Bob Norman, God bless Bob Norman, who was the announcer for the basketball games. I had him for a radio course. Bob Norman comes up to me and says, "I got this new internship at NBC, 30 Rock. You're the guy. You got to come." I go, "What's an internship?" So we went down there. First internship, I think, at NBC. It was great. The guy who was my boss there wanted to come up to Marist College and see Marist, and spoke at a communications thing where I met John Calabrese, who was a graduate of 67, I want to say, from Marist, who was at Madison Square Garden. And he and I just hit it off. He actually had a couple too many drinks, but we hit it off that night, and we kind of stayed in touch. It took months, but I got a job at the Garden. We were a regional sports network well before SNY, well before the Mets started their own thing. So we had all the teams, right, for a while there. Every New York team except for the NFL, because the NFL was a national only, but the regional network. But I started there as a PA, went over to camera, kind of went on the technical side because when they hired me, they just said, I just saw the way the directors were directing, and they didn't seem to know what the cameraman was seeing through the eye. So I kind of said, I'd like to try that technical side, and they offered me the job, and when 1 inch was new, well before where we are now. And I went camera, tape, replay, I did switcher, I did graphics, editor for about 7 years, and then I went into management, and they kind of offered me, and I became a director of operations, VP to an SVP, leaving there as an SVP after 23 years. I got recruited to be a president of a systems integration firm, which was great until that bottomed out in 2008 when the economy bottomed out. All of a sudden I was with nothing. I was just telling the story. And had no job all of a sudden, and kind of had to start anew, and started my own little company. Didn't do quite like your guys' jobs, and then the NFL actually came to me because I knew who they were, and was hired by the NFL to do the Thursday night football game, and then as I thought it was just another gig that I was going to do, and they ended up hiring me full time. 2010 that was, and then 10 years ago I came out here. They asked me to come out here and kind of run the studio and operations out here, and it's been great. And it's been one of the best vacations I've had, for a long, long time. And I work with great people. It's like what I was saying to a few people, the difference in cultures in New York and the Garden, 23 unions, and all the different folks that we work with there are a lot of good people at the Garden. There's a lot of great people here. Like everybody here just wants to kind of work. California makes it a little easier for employees to work. The weather's pretty nice. I'm sorry it's cold. I'm sorry you're cold. I am a little cold. But I appreciate everybody here. We're very happy to show it off, and I'm so glad you're here. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you again. I will say one thing. I was talking to some people before we started, and, some people are recent graduates who don't have a job yet. Someone in particular said, I just got laid off, and I said, congratulations. I think she was excited about that. But what I just heard from all of you right away is that all these paths are, so non-linear, right? You've all sort of traveled all these different paths to get where you are now, which I think is important advice for anyone at any stage of their career. It's inspiring for me because my path was entirely way too linear. I went from school to school to school to being a professor at Marist. So you don't need to do what I did. But anyways, I like all the stories because I think that tells a lot about just the industry in general. So for this next question, right, just a couple of you can answer. It doesn't need to be all of you if you don't want to. I know Jeff doesn't want to talk about himself, so you don't have to. But could you run us through what an average day or week is like for you sort of in your business? What are your primary responsibilities? What's the general Thursday look like aside for today, which I'm sure looks a little bit different, but I don't know if anyone wants to take it first, but yeah, Jeff wants to talk about himself now. Okay.
Well, now I feel bad, so I have to. Actually, no, I'm going to pivot just slightly because I love what you just said, and it's something that was on my mind coming here is that pivot, is that nonlinear. Who here is doing what they thought they would do when they graduate? I'm going to ask Mike, right? So who here, right? I went to Marist. I wanted to be a sports writer. That lasted 2 weeks. And then I switched to advertising. And I think that if you look around talking to any of your friends, and in particular, anybody who's over 40, I can guarantee there is a very, very small number of people that are doing what they were doing when they graduated college. In my friends in advertising, I know almost nobody. So I think it's super important listening to people and talking to people that you're always sort of, your head is on a swivel, right? It's when you were hanging out in the Lower East Side in New York, your head was on a swivel, but that was a whole different reason. But you're always looking for the next thing because, you started out in news. Okay, you're one of the few, right? That you're lucky enough, but you also took some detours. So, getting back to what my normal day is, I think as anybody who doesn't work for a traditional company, what is the one thing most of us do every day? We're looking for more work, right? Whether it is sales, whether it is the next project, whether it's the next movie, whether it's talent, we're always looking for the next thing. And so for my business, I was thinking about it, and I knew this question was going to come up. What did I do today? I presented some work to a client. We talked about some changes in a video. I sent some changes off to a graphics guy that I'm working with. And then I spent about 2 hours sending out emails to get the next project. So that concept of sales, that concept of looking, you're always moving forward. Unless you're planning on being a CPA, and there may be somebody out here who is a CPA, if you're going to be in the creative world, understand you're always going to be selling.
Yeah, excellent.
It's funny, I when you just said, your career path, when I went to Marist, I also had a minor in criminal justice. I was going to go into the FBI, and I'm at Fox Sports, so...
That's a likely
go
story.
Figure. But to the question, and I try to explain this to my parents, they have no idea what I do after all these years. My day changes drastically, literally day to day, week to week. Earlier this week, we had a town hall. We do these quarterly. They're produced, as you can imagine, our CEO, given what we do, we put on Super Bowls and everything. We have to map it out so it's like a television show. So it takes a ton of time. Derek Jeter is making his debut this weekend, so I shifted my attention to that and sort of what we're pushing out. We have the Women's World Cup coming up, so it's really day-to-day. It changes all the time. There is not something that I wake up and I know it's going to be consistent. But I appreciate that. I think it's actually a good thing.
Yeah, I think things like that help keep the working world fresh, right?
I would also, the news cycles and we hired Tom Brady and we have all we are in the news and we don't even expect it. I wake up to things that you'd be like, what the hell is going on? But it's interesting and it keeps me on my toes. So.
Yeah, I would imagine. Any other thoughts on day to day? Yeah, Dave needs a microphone again.
Yeah, the other one died. No, our day to day is to make sure the equipment works. No, we have a day to day we have a lot of planning. The NFL's cycle is pretty. Everybody knows when it's going to happen. We work on the tentpole events that are different and exciting. Every Super Bowl every year, the draft, all these Hall of Fame, and everything is a little different for those every year. But our shows, we're planning. We take these few months that we have for our team. It's the operation team, it's the engineering team, who sit here and work on the projects for the next few months to get ready for the season. So we go from planning, and then we go into execution. And you keep people trained if you can. The only chance you get a little bit of vacation might be during this little summer window. We call it the magic 3 months, but it's pretty routine. I probably average 9 to 10 meetings a day, which may not be like all the creative folks. I make sure I check in with all our teams, make sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing and trying to make sure that we give advice and we plan ahead. We're on the brink of different technologies and we're always trying to stay ahead of that. But the meetings are a lot. And the people are a lot, and probably the biggest, most important thing out of all of it is just managing the amount of people we have and making sure that everybody's doing and enjoying what they do. The culture has changed so much over the years, and I clearly am the oldest here, but being in the business, 1980 I graduated, so the culture, if you can imagine, at Madison Square Garden, where for women, diversity, there was none of that. I remember when the first women were allowed in a locker room, and the players just made it very uncomfortable for him. I mean, it was all male, it was all white, it was a lot different. And I'm so glad we have the changes, but I think we're in the middle of all of that. And the one thing about the NFL is I've been impressed with. It's just like you were dealing with, Andrew. You're in the microscope. Everybody judges you. You're always in the news, and they tackle it. They tackle all the hard issues, from concussions to diversity to whatever it is. They're in front of it, and they hire the people, and we try to tackle it. And I think that's what keeps it interesting for me, for sure. It's not all just creativity. That's how I get my creativity.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think people oftentimes think, the sports industry or the sports world is sort of like, when it's in season, that's when you're working. But off season, nothing's happening. But now with every league having their own network, there's always something to be working on. So I'll ask all of you as well, and Dave, you mentioned this too, who all had internships here? I imagine all of you probably had an internship at some point. How did your internship experiences help sort of prepare you for what you're doing now? And I guess the better question is, are you doing something completely different than your internship originally planned? Yeah, AJ, if you want to.
Yeah, definitely doing different stuff. At Marist, I did an internship at the local news station. I don't remember the name of it. And I did a 30 Rock internship as well at NBC Sports. And then out here, I did some development agencies or development companies. So those were like answering phones, reading bad scripts, and just being like an executive assistant, but the next level down. Yeah. But yeah, no, the only thing I would say that like translates is just managing time and being an effective communicator, and just being able to like say, like, yeah, I can do that, or even if you don't, and then you figure it out. So yeah, I mean, those are the only skills that translate to what I do now, is just that, I think, the mentality or the attitude.
Right, absolutely.
Just to kick in regarding internships, I don't know where everybody is in the audience here in terms of their career right now, but internships are literally everything, and I think they continue to be. It is where you foster a lot of relationships. It's where I did. At the end of the day, nobody hands you anything. There's truly nobody there trying, I mean, maybe in some situations now, actually, there's a little more help and tutelage, if you will. I mean, there's mentorship. There wasn't certainly over the past couple of decades, but even now, you have to forge your own way. You must be in an internship in a place where you can, a lot of the times, meet people like yourself who are pursuing the same dreams, become friends with them, build those contacts immediately, stay close to these people. They're the ones that are going to get you the work in the future.
Go ahead.
Can I jump in? So I had one internship, again, at Sony Music, The Orchard, and that was my first taste of marketing and what that meant and what that looked like. And I have been trying to get back to that since. And so I'm so grateful that I am, because I realized that I was good at it and I loved it. I loved just almost like having no information on a project and then coming up with something really cool. Like, and all of the internal communication and all the teams that you get to work with to ideate and brainstorm, it's super collaborative. And so that's something that I realized that I really loved doing and really enjoyed. And I think that also kind of integrates within sales, PR, producing, that it was oftentimes today, my day-to-day is sometimes I'm proactively working on films or series where we see Harry Styles is in this new Amazon Prime Video series, and that's all we have. And so we're like, okay, great. We have one nugget. Let's plant the seed and let's come up with something really cool. And that was producing too, is, we're finding headlines that are, just pop culture and relevant, and how can we find new angles for us to talk about these topics with our talent that no one else is thinking about it this way. And so that's the day-to-day, for me, that's what marketing is just just continuing to be like communicative and collaborative with internal partners, key external stakeholders. And so the internship was really valuable for me because it made me realize what I really was passionate about. I got my degree in PR and I thought I wanted to be a celebrity publicist, and I learned quickly that's not what I wanted to do. And so I was super, super grateful for that internship and all the connections. I'm still really close with my manager, and although she's on the East Coast, every time she has an opening, she's calling me and she's like, "Hey, are you interested?" And I'm like, "Sorry, I can't leave this weather." But I think they're just super, super influential. And as he was saying, I think there's also no shame in taking an internship post-grad as well if you are still figuring out what you want to do and what you're passionate about. Thank God that a lot of them are paid now. I did not experience that. But I just definitely agree with what everyone's been saying of like, I'm not doing what I thought I was going to do. I went into Marist with pursuing a degree in psychology, and then that pivoted. So I think it's just like, try everything. Like, just keep showing up to any internship, because so many people like get hired and brought on full time from those experiences too. So yeah, just don't be ashamed. Don't think that there's any stigma around going into an internship, even post grad is, I think, kind of my 2 cents too.
Yeah, great. Andrew, I don't know if you wanted to go.
Mine was a super.
Sure.
It was actually just giving a shout out to Marist. I think they do a tremendous job on the internship side. They got me an internship at MSG, so I did complete the trifecta of the New York Artisans, and it got my foot in the door. So, but kudos to Marist.
Yeah, I'll ask a follow-up question on that, because we're always talking about curriculum, and in sports communication, for instance, currently it is mandatory that you do an internship. That's like a class that you have to do before you graduate. Do you all think they should be mandatory like that, or do you want to throw people to the wolves and say either get one or don't, and good luck? I saw a vigorous nod yes from Jeff. You're like, mandate those internships.
I can't express how important internships are. I have 2 college-age kids. My one son just finished 2 days ago. He was interning at Bonnaroo, which is a big concert festival in Nashville. And I did get him the connection, but he must have called this woman 40 times. And she was a nice lady, but she just kept flaking. And he kept trying and trying and trying. And she apologized. She gave him the internship, and he had an incredible experience. The thing about internships, I think there's two ways to think of them. One, you'll learn what you want to do, and 2, you'll learn what you don't want to do. And you just talked about that, right? So I was lucky enough, my sophomore year, I interned Bob Norman, pulling out the Rolodex, and he was like, "Oh, there's an ad agency in Kingston, New York. You may want to work there." And I went there, I worked there. The second semester, they said, "What are you going to do for a job?" And I said, "I'm going to work at the school pizza place," back when there was a pizza place where the bar used to be. This is, ancient history. And so I ended up working part-time at an ad agency at 19 years old and worked on and off all the way through school. My senior year, I had an internship at a PR firm because I thought I might like to do PR. And I hated it. And I said, no, I don't ever want to do PR. PR is very different now. Actually, I probably would like to do PR. But internships are so important. And like recently, somebody came to me, a friend of a friend, my daughter's boyfriend is very interested in production. Can you introduce him to anybody? In particular, he wants to talk to somebody, you probably know, the Famous Group, the gentleman down at the end. Andrew, do you know the Famous Group? Yeah, so I know somebody there. Can you introduce him? I said, okay, sure. Have him send me his resume. He has no internships. He has no jobs. I can't, as much as seems like a nice kid, but without an internship, without proof that you have some concept of the world, it's very, very hard. And I just think, I think I asked Corinne a couple years ago, I said, well, what's the percentage of people, was it you that I think, yeah. And I think you said some insane number, like 80% or some like really, really impressive number. So, I mean, whatever you guys are doing, keep doing it.
I would just add, on being on this side of the world of hiring, right? How do I get to know you? How do we get to see people? We just ran a tech ops training camp. what I don't remember at Marist, when, of course, I was there a long time ago, the communications program has changed dramatically. Behind the scenes and the stuff that you just see, the people that were just doing it, that put all the work together. We ran a training camp, for 2 weeks, and we were kind of trying to get diversity in here as well. Went to a lot of the HBCU schools as well. And we had 23 people in here, and we got to know them. And we just put and the people who taught them were our operators. We didn't have teachers. We didn't have all the instruction. We had just operators who were just in there. And what it did, it invigorated our operators to teach the kids coming in, and it wasn't just kids, it was people who were just trying to get into the workplace. But for me, if I'm evaluating, I'm trying to figure out who we can hire next. And unfortunately, this business goes through layoffs, and we go through different times, and it's not easy. But you want to have that in. You kind of want to know something about that person that makes them special. And I got to say, out of the people we just had in, 23 people, I love them all. They're all, there's something a little bit about each one of them, and then you just want to hire them. And you can't find spots for them sometimes, but you get to know enough people in the business and the industry that I would be passing along to you guys, and if you guys have openings. And that's how you see it. That's what the internships are so valuable for.
Yeah, that would be like a good problem to have, right? When you have too many qualified people, and obviously, everyone's looking for a job. Some of you here are looking for a job, right? So those are good ways to sort of make those connections. I want to touch on at least one industry-focused question, and AJ, you kind of hinted at this in your sort of opening, introduction. How has the popularity of streaming impacted sort of like your industries and your professions and all that you do? And how do you foresee it continuing to change in the next 5 to 10 to even more years? I imagine streaming has really impacted probably each of you in some capacity.
Yeah, I mean, we work in digital content distribution, so we're all. Sony, we still do put things on DVDs, but that's shrinking more and more every year, and it's all becoming digital. So, the conversations that we're having right now is everybody's trying to figure out how to squeeze every last dollar out of their IP. So we're talking about taking TV shows and movies from the 30s and 40s and converting them into higher quality videos so that people will watch them on their phones, and figuring out ways to get content that might not be premium but could live on a streaming service like Tubi or Freevee or Pluto, which are the ad-supported ones, if anybody knows what those are. So not having to pay a premium subscription service, but you'd watch it with ads, and that's how the company would make revenue. So that's what everyone's trying to do right now, at least at Sony, is try to figure out how to monetize every last bit of content, because there's so much and there's so many options to watch it. So I think that's going to continue to be a thing. I think like ad-supported streaming will continue to grow. I think when the strike is over, it's going to be different, but I think there's still going to be a lot of content being made and a lot of places to watch it. But it's going to be really interesting how it changes. I read an article yesterday about how Warner was maybe thinking about licensing content to Netflix, which hadn't really happened before. So that's like, if that continues to be a trend and a paradigm shift, then the whole thing's going to kind of change a little bit.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Michael, you gotta go for it.
Oh, no, go ahead. Oh, you go. Okay. Yeah, I was just going to say, I think from our perspective, it's always positioned as linear versus streaming, and we really don't look at it that way. We look at it as we're pro bundle right now. And whether that's through a dish, whether that's through a cable subscription, whether that's through your Wi-Fi at home, YouTube TV, Hulu Plus, we're pro consumer, because the way things are shifting on that side, it's, everyone has to get all these different subscriptions for the same content you used to get in the bundle, which is a great value. So, and the ironic thing is, everyone talks about the shrinking universe. Our ratings are higher than ever. And if you look at all of the major deals, whether it's college football, which just happened with the Big Ten and the SEC, the NFL deals, MLB, all of the biggest events are on broadcast television. Everyone wants reach. There's a shift back to broadcast television. We're not anti-streaming. We stream every one of our events through the Fox Sports app. But we're just pro-bundle. We think it's a better value for the consumer, and you're not having to remember 15 different passwords. It's just a lot easier. But obviously, streaming is the future, and we're very into it, but we're pro-bundle.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it was just to add, in terms of what I do, in terms of scripted content, streaming changed everything. As everybody here has probably a Netflix subscription or HBO Max or Hulu or Amazon Prime, that is the future. Even the networks ultimately all have streamers of some capacity in play and or on the air as we speak. But for my purposes, I was able to come around, 10, 12 years ago when streaming started kicking in full. I had so many more places to pitch content, set up projects. A lot of what I've done over the last 7 or 8 years just happens to be Hallmark movies, but that's because they make 100 films a year. So, but to that extent, what that gave birth to were places like Netflix, who makes 20 Christmas movies a year, or places like Amazon Prime or Hulu or everybody else who also jumped into that game. They follow trends, but long and short of it, for anybody who's thinking of entering that world, it is a very, very good time for anybody who is thinking of getting into scripted or nonfiction. Things are good right now, and I think they're only going to get better, actually.
Yeah, so it seems like either from all your perspectives, streaming is a net positive overall?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
AJ,
Yeah.
I saw you want to jump in there.
I was just going to say, I watch all those holiday movies, so thank you.
I heard, is it true that a Marist sweatshirt made it in? I keep hearing about this Marist reference in one of your...
So every now and then, if I'm bored on a set up in Vancouver, I try and get Marist into one of the movies, and I'll drop I'll have a scene I'll just rewrite on the spot, and somebody walks into a cafe and they'll be talking. It's like, where'd you go to school? I'm like, oh, Marist College, and just so it's sort of like just a drop. So if you're ever watching a Hallmark movie, every now and then you'll see like a shirt in the background going, I swear to God, I just saw a Marist blazer walking past. And so it's pretty funny. I either get my hometown, which is Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, into a movie here and there, or I try and throw a Marist drop left and right. And again, it's so random. And my director's like, what is that? And I'm like, trust me, somebody will watch it and enjoy it.
Yeah. The crowd of people that would enjoy it is right here tonight. So be on the lookout. All right. So... what are the top skills needed to be successful in this industry? If you had to sum it up into one or two, what are the top skills that a new graduate or somebody should have if they want to work in sort of the film, TV, media, sports industry in some capacity?
I would say 2 words.
Or more.
Yeah. I would say just resilience. Don't always take no for an answer, and if you get no, it'll be a yes somewhere else. Just knowing that, as you hear from all of our career paths, I think that's just continuing to show up and making your presence known is really important, specifically in this industry because it's so competitive, I think as far as specific hard skills that have allowed me to progress to where I am today is just being curious and just being open to learn something new, and whether you understand what it is or not. And I think people really value that. And I always thought for a really long time that no one was noticing me, but everyone was noticing me. Everyone was noticing in the sense of everyone noticed how curious I was and how excited I was to just be in the room. And so I think that's been really important. And then also being a diligent researcher. That was a skill that I learned and kind of hated in college, but it ended up playing such a large role in every single job that I've had is, again, another sense of being curious is just learning what's going on in the market, learning what other companies are doing, other people are doing, and having as many conversations as possible, no matter if the company or the job makes sense. I know a few students out here have reached out to me just out of pure curiosity of what I do, and I really value that because I think that is something that has just really become really tangible success in my career. So I would think that's not 2 words, but a lot of just a lot of different ways that I think that you can be successful in this industry and continue to grow.
Thank you.
I just don't be afraid to fail. That's how you learn. I mean, pretty simple on that. And then just work on building relationships and networking.
Great, yeah.
Yeah. Hard work is a good thing, too. Hard work, little ethics, but really, you really do have to stand out somehow. And I think the people like just what I just saw in this training camp, it's the people who really do go that extra piece, who are actually in there before everybody else, who actually, when they were taught something, they said, what else? How else does this work? Don't be afraid to ask the questions. Don't be afraid to take some chances. Don't be afraid to stick your neck out further than you expect it to be and try something new. But really the work and the energy, you have to kind of be ready just to dive in, and if somebody sees that day in and day out, they're going to give you more,
Yeah.
The one tag I'll throw on that is you're going to have, let's say, 100 people who are doing the same thing as you. You have to figure out a different way to do it. You can't follow that same path. I'm not saying everybody's sheep. I mean, there are some set rules no matter what you're going to do, but you have to spend that night before, whatever, and think before you get into that job the next day, what am I going to do different than those other 100? The way I got to where I am right now talking to you had nothing to do with following a set pattern that everybody was telling me I should have followed. I went completely zigzag. Just zigzag all the way through, and you will get to where you're going to go. It's all just being tenacious and making sure that put yourself where you want to be at the end of the day.
Yeah. You took the scenic route, is what I'm hearing.
The last thing I'll say is ditto what everyone said, but communication skills, it's a communications-based industry. Never underestimate the power of just like a well-written email. I love that.
Yeah.
So, work on your written and your verbal communication skills and make sure that you can get your thing across and you can dissect what someone else is saying and move on with it.
These are the little things that, like, as a professor, we try to stress, and people are like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, well, it is important, though, right? Like, those are the things that help you stand out.
Yeah.
Make sure your emails aren't super long, though. I've gotten some that are like novels, and I'm like, I'm not reading this. Just skip to the bottom.
Yeah, you got to hit them with the Reddit, like TLDR, just too long, didn't read, here's the quick version.
Yeah, exactly.
But send the email.
But send the email.
I can't tell you how many times I have people reach out to me and say, hey, tell me about your business or, Marist students. The amount of follow-up that I get, the amount of thank you that I get, you got to teach them that. I don't know how you don't know this. I mean, truthfully, it drives me insane.
Yeah.
If I've spent the time to talk to you, like, how do you not know to send a thank you? I just think it's the most basic thing. And so, everybody said the same thing. You have to be tenacious. You have to go for it. You cannot just sit around and expect a job to come to you, because it won't. And I know that, I don't know, maybe it's a generational thing and I sound like an old guy, but you got to be aggressive. You really have to just go for it. And you said it, don't take no for an answer, and just you just got to keep grinding.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when everybody says the same thing, they're all saying the same thing for a reason, right? So, yeah.
Can I add one more thing?
Of course.
Just specifically as a BIPOC woman, oftentimes I am the only woman and person of color in a room. Do not let that scare you. Do not let that intimidate you. I think for a really long time that's what held me back. And it's like my superpower. Like, no one's going to ever go through the things that I go through or have been through in my lifetime. And so it's really beautiful to be able to add my perspective in whatever room that I'm in and get people thinking differently. So I just wanted to add that really quickly. I think that's just super, super important. Is like, don't even think about that. I think for a long time that really held me back. So just show up.
Yeah, that is so unbelievably important. You know, even teaching in sports communication, you could imagine the ratio of the students in my class. There's a lot more men, right? And it's just like that's kind of how it is because the sports industry for a long time has been seen that way. But things are changing, and they have to change, and people like you are helping change it. So thank you. So based on the schedule, which I think I've already blown up the schedule, I saw the time, and Amanda just gave me a shrug, which means I'm just going to keep going. Oh, you don't know what time it is? Don't think about it. Just a couple more, though. So as you all know, we're here in Los Angeles, and that means I flew on a 5.5-hour flight yesterday, which means we're nowhere near Poughkeepsie, New York. So for any Marist graduates that may want to come out to LA, right? I've heard a lot of you say, hey, networking and connections are important. How do they make those connections? How do you network, right? Like, how do you make those things happen? How do you get from Poughkeepsie to Los Angeles to California if you're not even from here, right? If this is not your home, how do you end up here?
Well, nobody's from here. So that's first. I met somebody who was from here. Honest to God, raise your hand if you're from California.
All right, so
all right, decent amount.
So what Jeff is saying is you're no one.
That's not what I'm saying.
No, sorry.
It's like any place else, right? I mean, you just, again, we keep saying the same thing. You have to be tenacious. You have to be guileless. You have to talk to anybody. I've told this story many times. When I was starting my career in advertising, back when, before computers, when you had a portfolio, I was on the New York subway going to an interview, and I saw a guy reading Adweek. And I looked at him and I said, "Oh, you're in advertising." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, what do you do?" And he said, I'm a copywriter. I said, "Well, I want to be a copywriter. Can I show you my portfolio?" Right in the middle of the subway. Opened up my book. He gave me his card. I didn't get the job. Doesn't matter. I went for it. You gotta go for it. It doesn't, I mean, you know, I can tell you that I love LinkedIn, but I think we all know that.
Yeah, I would just say, once you get out here, obviously the hardest thing is going to be getting your first job, but just get any job you can. Like, don't be picky about what it is, even if it's not in your dream thing. We've all touched upon how we've taken weird paths, but like, even if you are dead set on what you want to do, just get any foot in the door, and then that will just enable you to grow your network, and then before you know it, your coworker's roommate's cousin works where you want to work, and then you have that in. So just don't be precious about it. There's not as many jobs right now because of the strike and other factors, but that's going to end hopefully end of the summer, if not sooner, knock wood. And then things will open back up. I think on-set experience is great no matter what you want to do, and PA positions are a really good place to start to put your tenacity to work and to just be a jack of all trades and learn different parts of the industry. And there's different things you can do to find those kind of jobs. There's LinkedIn groups, there's meetup groups, there's Facebook things that you can figure out ways to network with people that are, at your position and trying to find their way into the industry.
Yeah, thank you.
I think one, again, non-traditional way that I was able to get my foot in the door a little bit deeper, all the way from Poughkeepsie in LA, was following people on social media, like music executives, media executives that I was inspired by, and just seeing what kind of organizations. You'd be surprised how many people are like a part of a nonprofit or creating their own groups. And so I found this group called Latinas in Music, and it was these incredible female music executives from the senior vice president of artist relations at Billboard to the head of talent relations at Spotify. And so they are often looking for spaces and places to be mentors. And so I was often finding ways to connect with them through social media too. So LinkedIn, social media, as everyone said, I think is like really your best friend. And don't be afraid to slide into the DMs. It helped me. Don't be creepy, but there's a good professional way to do it. Just to have the conversation. Just be like, hey, I'm in town for a week. I'd love to grab coffee while I'm there. You'd be surprised. The worst thing they could say is no, and the best thing they could say is yes. So I think closed mouths don't get fed. So just ask away.
Yeah, one thing I like about our group right here is that we do represent different generations, right? Like the version of sliding into the DMs was probably different back if you were graduating in the 80s or the 90s, right? But there was a version of it, right? It could be giving your information to somebody on the subway. So Dave is contemplating, you know.
Yeah, I didn't know what DM meant back in '80.
Nobody did, I don't think. But yeah. So in closing, so the last thing I'll ask, and this is for each one of you, one final piece of advice for current students, for alumni, for future students. Just what is one piece of advice of all you've said, of all you have? What do you think?
Just keep at it. You know, just be who you are, be yourself, you know, and let that come through would be the biggest thing. I mean, hopefully it's somebody who's energetic and wants to work and wants to be. And then my biggest thing, I think, is when you're looking at a job, don't look at it as what it is that you want to do. What can this job be for me? Kind of try to put yourself in the other person's perspective who's doing the hiring and say, what are you looking for? And I'm a good fit for that, you know, and try to just kind of think along those terms if you're trying to work. I can't tell you how many people I can turn away because I lose them in a minute, you know, when I know that they're telling me about what they really want. You know, you're applying for a job that we have that is needed, and that job, you probably should figure out how you're going to fit into that job. Do your research. Be ahead of it. Know who you're coming in to see. You know, on these 85, 90 interviews that we did, that we selected 23 or 24, I would say there were 30 that and there were a panel of 6 of us, that we all just said, nope, you know, and it was because they weren't interested. Or they did the interview while they're driving in a car. Or, you know, I mean, they didn't put a lot of effort didn't even know what they were signing up for. They just said, yeah, somebody told me I should do this. That was one of my favorites. Yeah, somebody told me you should look into this. Oh, it sounds like a good opportunity, so. And I said, so? You know, like, okay. Yeah. So we moved on. But somebody who's, you know, who's into it, who's wants to and gets hungry and they get me hungry. Now, all I want to do is hire you, like, you know. That's kind of the energy level. That's what I think is important.
Yeah, excellent. Mike?
I would just kind of reiterate what other people were saying. At the end of the day, like I said, there's going to be a lot of people that you're competing with. It doesn't matter who you are, how old you are. It was the same for us. It'll be the same for you. You're going to be competing with a lot of people. You just have to be a little bit better than them. You have to think, and it's going to sound silly, but I would, you know, instead of going out to that party on a Saturday or whenever, I would, you know, maybe this is years ago, go to the library and look up stories for movies, and I would sell a movie off of that because I just put the extra mile in. I know it sounds funny, but that extra mile, if they not only do employers kind of see how tenacious you are, see how much drive you have, and they love that, they live for that, because there's not a ton of that out there right now. Trust me. I mean, even on sets that I've been on in the last 10 years, or especially the last 7 years, there seems to be a real, like, just get by. You know, you want to just show them that you're going to go the extra mile. Do that, and you'll have a fantastic career.
The lights are shutting off on us, which means we must really be out of time. So I'm going to let everyone go real quick. Jeff, after you.
We're subtle here.
Yeah. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
That's right.
We're at Renaissance. So I would say, you know, the obvious ones: show up early, stay late, be self-motivated, the obvious stuff. But I'm actually going to say something that probably doesn't fit with this whole thing, which is, you are more than your job.
Yeah.
And you're more than the job that you seek. And it's okay to seek joy outside of work. And what I mean by that is, the biggest line of bullshit that we were ever fed was, find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Because it's work. It's called work. Nobody pays you if it isn't work, and I'm sorry. But the reality is, find something you enjoy doing. Find something that gives you a passion, and it's okay if that's out of work. You can still solve problems, and you can still feel great about what you do, and you can still make money, and you can still pay pay your mortgage. But it doesn't have to be all-encompassing.
Yeah, that's great.
If you're going to have to get used to asking people for favors and to make connections and do things on your behalf, make it really easy for them to say yes. Do 90% of the work for them so that when they get that email and it's not too long, they can just easily say, yeah, I'll totally help that person out because they did most of the work up front. They did the research. They figured out who I need to pass them along to, and they put, points as to why. And so just make it really easy for people to say yes to you.
What everyone has said is like spot on. I think just believing in yourself first before like expecting anyone else to is really crucial. If you show up confidently, people believe you. If you show up uncertain and unprepared, people see it and feel it. And I think, shoot, I forgot what I was going to say. It was something off of what you just said. But I think just what everyone has said, show up confidently, send the emails, continue to be curious. I'll remember what I was actually going to say. It was way more profound than what I'm saying right now. So go ahead, Andrew.
Same. I agree with everyone here. But, for me, it's just everything is relationships in life. Whatever you can do to forge those relationships. When you're on a downtime, you're trying to find a job or you're trying to get a different job, relationships it'll always make it happen. So I would just say forge those. And when you're just starting out, even if it's like the simple things, let's say you want to be in comms, send a note to a reporter saying, hey, I really enjoyed your article. Here's why. And just make it personalized. And remember, if it's somebody's birthday that you've talked to, it's those little nuances and those little steps that actually go a long way. 100% relationships. And I think the final thing is just watch Fox Sports and you guys will be perfect.
I was hoping there was going to be a shameless plug in here somewhere. Becci has remembered.
Yes, I remembered. Being intentional, right? I think it's important to take as many opportunities as you can. One key advice that I've gotten is network laterally. These people that you're starting off with, you're going to grow with. So it's not always about networking up. It really is just, building these friendships, these relationships, because you just don't know who's going to step into your dream company and then they're building a team. It's just a cycle and it really is who you know. And the relationships just go so far. And I think people also really value genuine relationships with these people. And so I think being intentional in that way is really important.
I was waiting for like a really nice cliffhanger that everyone's going to come ask you afterwards, like what it was, but you remembered, so it's too late. The cliffhanger's over. But thank you all for the advice. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Dave, for helping us put this on. Thank you to Amanda and everyone who was involved in putting the event on as well. Thank you to Kevin Weinman for coming out here. And thank you to all of you for being in the audience and for being a part of this. I will say, everybody up here now a little bit better, so if you want a time to network, not going to throw everybody up here under the bus, but this might be a good time to do it. But get to know people, talk to them and talk to each other. And thank you all for having me and for having all of us. So thanks, everyone. Desmond, you have a microphone.
The microphone is if anybody has any questions.
Oh, wonderful.
So that was what you were going to announce.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I just graduated this past year. But my question's like a little bit past the career base. So I'm Connecticut born and raised. I'm trying to move here. So my question is for someone that lived there on the East Coast, like in the same position as me, what is your advice for moving to the California state?
Do it, but give yourself at least 6 months, if not a year, to really feel comfortable here. Like, it's a huge city. Like, if you're gonna be in the LA area, it's a massive city. There's a ton of different pockets and sub pockets and neighborhoods, and are all different. It's gonna take you a bit to get used to it and figure out where you like to be and how to deal with traffic and take surface streets and all that kind of stuff. But like, don't expect to just feel comfortable a month in, and give yourself the time to like. I love it. Like, it's amazing, but you don't just arrive here on day one. Oh, it's sunny and I love it. Like, it takes time. So just give yourself that time.
This isn't Connecticut. I live in Connecticut. I still live in Connecticut. I have my home in Connecticut, and
Me
I have
too.
an apartment here. So it's not Connecticut, but it's awesome. So there's differences of both, and you just adjust, but I really love your idea there, AJ, is just getting a little space, and there are definite different communities in this great city, honestly.
I think that's great advice. I say just pull the trigger. I was sleeping on people's floors for a while until I could collect enough dollars to get, pay rent somewhere. This city is different than anywhere you will ever live. I will just say that. But it's also so magical. There's so many beautiful things and opportunities just literally talking to anyone like on the street. And I just think it's if it's something that you have on your mind, on your heart, I think you should just go for it, and you don't have to figure out all the details right away. It's gonna take a second to adjust, as AJ shared. I know I'm 4 years in, and I feel like I just got my feet planted, and that's not to scare you, but it really is just a fast-paced city. There's, always just traffic is not moving, but everything else is. And so, I say go for it. I think you should. Nothing's permanent is my philosophy, and if you love it, amazing. If you can't stand it, and you miss home, go back. So, I've just met. And I have the most amazing community here. One of my best friends in the audience. She's an amazing music tour manager. And so that being said, we just met at a friend's bridal party, and so you'll meet anybody and everybody here, and it's just really, really awesome and fun experience. So I say go for it.
I also think there's a lot of jobs that you can, even if you're in Connecticut or New York, and they're hybrid. So I think that's another opportunity, but just know yourself, and if you're comfortable taking that leap, like for me, I would probably feel more comfortable having a job, but that's just my personality. That doesn't make that the right way. And I wasn't ever planning to come out here. It was just a job that sort of brought me here. I got the lay of the land, and I love it. So I do think you should take the chance as long as, like, personality-wise, you're comfortable taking that leap.
Hi, I'm Pat. I just recently graduated. As a recent graduate, we talk about networking and internships and, the process of kind of finding that path or whichever way it takes you. But, once you cross that threshold and you do get a job, what is the thing you could do from day one that really make you stick out?
Let me throw this in just for, I think a lot of people, again, this might be generational too, but sort of get out here and they hustle, they get that gig, and they're in the job, and it's all consuming. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's all good. But what you really want to do is sit just when you're finished with that day, you're finished going to that party or whatever, sit there and map out the next 3 years. A lot of people don't do that. They're all about, and it's nothing wrong with this either. You're living for the moment. That's fantastic. But those who, and I did this as well, but those who kind of map out those next 3 years, all of a sudden it stays in your head, and you have a plan to stick to. It's almost psychological, and all of a sudden you'll find yourself getting there. I have friends that had gigs out here, and then 5 years went by, and they're stuck in it now, right? Because this is how they make their money, and the thing they really wanted to do, they just didn't plan properly. But if you put yourself where you want to be, if you're like, I'm going to do this for this long, this for this long, this for this long, you'll watch how that kind of maps out how your future's going to look. So try and do that 3, 4, even 5-year plan, and you'll be blown away by how you actually execute that.
I think mine would be, it's probably a little cliche, but I think it's just attitude, right? Being willing to take on projects that might not be in sort of your job description. I think it goes a long way if you're a team player, and it'll make you stand out. I think a lot of people get caught up with this is my role, and they put themselves in a box. Just and volunteer, help out if there's an event coming up or whatever, and just make yourself indispensable.
All right. Thank you again, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. My pleasure.